when you're preparing for a job hunt, the first thing you need to do is prep up your resume and then also figure out what type of job you're actually looking for. So for preparing your resume, there are tons of different digital sources that have templates. So this could be a Canva. If you have access to Word, they have templates there, and then a free version of Word, or a free program that's very similar to Word, I should say, is Google Docs on that one. And so they have tons of templates where you just go select the one that you think looks best, and then you plug in your information. The next step is figuring out what type of jobs you're actually looking for. So if you're not sure what you are interested in, you can start by looking at some different aptitude tests. So there are tons of aptitude tests, but the whole point of these are to figure out what jobs match your interests and your skills that you currently have. So again, those are places like Career Fitter, Career Hunter, Assessment.com, and Truity. One thing to know about aptitude tests actually is sometimes your employer or potential employer might ask you to take an aptitude test, a competency test, or even a personality test. But that'll all be part of the job application process and somewhere in the interviews. But then once you know what you're looking for and you have your resume ready to go, it's looking for the job openings themselves using a job search engine. So you're looking for jobs in your area and you want to apply for anything relevant. There are tons of different places. So there's Indeed, there's LinkedIn, and Google for Jobs. There's also all of the different places that you see on commercials. So it's always best to pick a variety of them, make sure they're reputable, and then go through those to search for jobs that match what you're looking for. Any questions on career stuff? All right, we'll move on to education. So how to continue your education online. A lot of this is going to be focused on much more formal education, but then I'll talk a little bit about informal education and accessing that online in a bit. Yeah.
Sorry, not a question, but
You're good.
back to jobs. Just a comment, because we literally just went through intense job searching with my husband. He
Nice.
lost and
Yes.
then got it. But
Yes.
for people that don't know, like he's on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
and he lost a job 4 years ago, and there's a difference. And this year what's happened a lot is we would get bombarded by people that say that they're recruiters.
Yeah.
And
LinkedIn.
in the beginning, because I would help them out a lot and
Mm-hmm.
fill out, and then when you get into the weeds, they're trying to sell you something or whatever.
Yes.
So just really it's more information for other people to be real careful with that. And then he does have a good friend that really is a recruiter, and we called him and said, what the heck is going on? And he was talking about the whole scamming and blah, blah, blah.
Yes, that's a great point. There are scams in the job search area, and so often they do look like that, where they are a fake recruiter. They reach out to you, they're like, hey, I have this job opening, I think you're a great fit for it. Either send me all your information or pay this much and I'll apply for it for you. And then either they have your information or they have some money and then they're gone. So all of those things are something to be aware of if you're ever looking for a job, that there are just as nice scams as there are good open positions.
Is this primarily going to be about the job?
Nope.
Oh, it's
Yeah, we're covering a couple interest areas, but then we'll be talking about more the safety and the scams at the end, I promise.
Never getting a job.
Yeah, no, you're good. Education, so if you're interested in furthering your education, that is things like deciding what you want to pursue and enrolling in a relevant course. So, again, this is much more the formal education side of things, college versus certification. When you're looking at college, I think we all are kind of familiar with it, but online school is a little different. The classes might look a little different. You might be doing things like having one class at a time, or being able able to go through classes as quickly as you're able to. There's all sorts of different opportunities when you're looking at online colleges, but each one has their own style. When it comes to certifications, one thing to note is that certifications are very much a stamping of your skills for a specific skill set, whereas a college degree is more of a broad statement of everything you're able to do. A certification is, hey, I know how to do that skill well, and I can keep on moving on with my life. So keep that in mind depending on what your needs are. And enrolling in online college looks very similar to enrolling in a in-person college, where you are filling out the FAFSA, you're finding relevant programs, applying online, there are probably fees, and then if you're accepted, you're looking into scheduling classes with your advisor. And most colleges will have support to help you through this process if you're interested. Certification enrollment. So these are places like Coursera, Corsica. These, again, you're finding relevant courses, you're enrolling, again, fees do often apply, and then you're practicing those skills. Companies such as Coursera, Google, and even sometimes some public universities will have certifications. The other thing to know is that most job industries will have their own courses as well sometimes it's through professional organizations, sometimes it's through certification organizations. They'll have courses as well. And then the last bit we're going to cover here is community learning resources. So this is things like North Star and LinkedIn Learning. North Star is a digital literacy class provider, and they have a bunch of different classes. It's everything from very, very basic to more advanced skills. So we do have access through it through AMHA, but also the Akron-Summit County Public Library has access through it. I do not know if the Barberton Public Library has access to it, but you're welcome to go and ask them about it. And they have, again, a very broad range of topics through North Star Digital Literacy. But if you're interested in furthering anything that we discuss here, North Star probably has something on that. The other one is LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn Learning is much more about professional skills, and they have tons of topics. Again, through the Akron-Summit County Public Library, you have access to it if you have a library card. If you have questions on how to access it, there are instructions on their website. However, you're always able to go into a library and they'll help you out. Again, I don't know if Barberton Public Library has this, but you should always go ahead and give them ask. The last thing we're going to cover that's not on here is formal versus informal learning. So all of this is formal learning that we've discussed so far. These are courses that have been vetted, people who are presenting you that information, all of it is factual. Informal learning is going to be things like those short videos you see on Facebook or TikTok, or the longer videos you see on YouTube that are all about learning skills or learning about interest areas. One thing to know about these is they are not vetted necessarily by the website that they're placed on. So it's really important that you are critical of who you're getting that information through and assessing it along the way if you feel that it's accurate or if you feel that the person presenting you this information is trustworthy. Sometimes you can go onto their page and read about the About You, read some comments, see if people seem to be, and comments are hit or miss, I will say that. But, if everyone seems to be saying, this is not true, it's probably not true. Again, comments are hit or miss. But the other thing you can do is if you hear something and you're like, is that right? Go and do a Google search. Look for it yourself. Look for those trusted sources that you already know and see if you can find any information about it through there.
I was going to say, sometimes I love informal learning for like DIY stuff and
yes.
fixing up your house and
yes.
not having to pay somebody $1 million to do a simple task. But to be mindful of the comments also, because sometimes those can be linked to
Yes.
you know, a link that will put you into something, you know.
Yeah, you don't want to be clicking on links in areas like comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those can definitely be bad actors. One thing to note is just because a link says a certain location doesn't mean that's where it will lead you. Any of that hyperlink text, so that's the link text that is highlighted in blue, it has a secondary code of where it's sending you. So it may not send you where it says it's sending you. So be careful of any hyperlinks, particularly in comments, because anyone can leave those, but also on Facebook posts, anything that's taking you to a different location. Unless you know that the original poster is a trusted source, don't click on that link. Instead, go and Google search or search in your preferred search bar and search for that information yourself. So then you know what you're clicking on versus what the hyperlink may have. And yeah, informal learning on the internet, like the internet is probably best at sharing between people. So there are fantastic informal learning opportunities on the internet. But again, just be critical of it. Always be mindful of who's presenting the information and what angle they might be bringing to it.
Yeah, it's not always good advice. You know?
Yes, it is not always.
You're finding good advice.
Yes. So don't ever fully trust someone else over your own instincts. All right, any questions on education? Okay. Now we're going to touch on finances and particularly online banking. So preparing to online bank, you need to kind of have two things set up. You need to know, do you have an open bank account at a bank that provides online services? And then have you created an online account for that bank? So the process is basically you get your account and then you're able to create your digital account, and from there you can connect the two and see what's going on with your finances through whatever digital method, your phone or your laptop. So using online banking services, if you have an existing account, most banks nowadays have an online platform. There are some banks that even only operate online. So all of the main banks in the area do have online platforms. We're not going to be able to go over everyone's platform just because every bank is slightly different, but if you go into a bank and ask them to help you with some things, they are typically very welcome to and very happy to do that. I know my mom has gone into banks and been like, hey, I can't get into my online account. I don't know what's going on. And they've helped her. So that's always a resource you can go to. If you don't have a new account or an open account, you can open an account online through most banks. So there are banks that only operate online, so you can only get an account online. But then even some of our well-known brick and mortar banks like Huntington, you can open an account online through them as well. And it's all types of accounts, savings, checkings, everything. So some of the benefits of online banking are its ease. It is very simple to transfer money within your own systems. It's also simple to transfer money to other people. It's also really easy to deposit checks. You just take pictures of them with your cell phone. You can do things like speedy loan applications. You can open additional accounts through a lot of online banking as well. And then typically it is considered safer than traditional banking. However, it's only as safe as you make it. So that ease of access to do things like transfer money to other people means that you are the safeguard verifying who you're sending that money to. So you need to make sure you know, yes, this is exactly who I'm sending the money to. A lot of the banks right now use Zelle as like a money transfer. Yep. And so that's connected through our phone numbers typically. So you want to make sure, oh yeah, I know that this is the correct phone number for that person if you're sending money to them through that. So while it's typically considered safer, it does put a lot of the burden of keeping it safe on us.
The example I gave in the introductory session about the woman who yesterday she was telling me how she sent $1,000 to who she thought was a relative. She did that through Zelle, and she was able to then recover the money because the bank,
Oh, wow.
you know, because it was through Zelle, they kind of
Yeah, so there are
guarantee it,
several banks that and services like Zelle. I believe Venmo has a similar service where if you find out this was a scam, something happened, there are ways to recover that. Every bank is different, every service provider is a little different on what their rules and regulations are. The one thing to know is you need to act the minute you realize something has gone wrong. Call your bank. Don't call your bank through something that they send you. Look up their phone number and call them through that phone number. Sometimes scammers will kind of add on layers to their scam, and so they might say, oh, we think an alert was, or a false purchase was detected, call us at this number. Well, you're automatically going to be like, oh no, I need to call them immediately and see what's going on. But if they've sent you the phone number, it's directing you to their person. So it's always best if something is going on with your bank account, and even if they've alerted you to it, always go and search the phone number or go into the bank and talk with them, and make sure that you know who you're talking to, not through whoever is prompting you to talk.
Yeah, they were not the actual relative, they were posing as the relative, so.
Yeah, that is a very common thing, is posing as someone else to get you to give people money, and it's easy to do nowadays. So we will look a little bit more on those kind of imposter scams, but that's a great example of knowing what recourses you have. So like with Zelle, if you realize, oh no, this is not who I meant to send it with, let me see if I can cancel it, let me see if I can flag it as, or dispute that charge, and then also knowing what recourses your bank has. So my bank card was stolen in December. I had like $500 of charges on there. All of a sudden, it was not a fun day. But I went through and I called my bank. Again, I Googled the phone number first, and then I called my bank and I was like, hey, these are not my charges. So we went through the process of disputing it, and I got all of my money back. But it's really important that you're aware of what money is going out and you know how much money should be there. And so things like online banking can help you be aware of what's going on every minute in your bank account. And so that's some of the benefits there. But it's all about you guys knowing what should be there.
Chase Bank always sends me an alert.
Good, yeah.
I go with Chase. Chase always send me an alert. Even when I buy something, they send me an alert to see if I'm doing it.
Yeah, I have a bank that also does that. Every time I use my card, they alert me and say, hey, this much was spent on this card. And I normally just read it and I'm like, yep, that was me, and I move on with my day. But it is a really nice way to know that, hey, that card was used. As long as it's me, we're good. But if someone else is using that, let's figure it out.
But I say, a few weeks ago, I got scammed for $835, and went through Zelle, and they could not recoup my money.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that the reason Zelle recouped her money was because of the bank. It's often, because Zelle is really just a transfer service.
Right.
Okay.
And it really depends on the banks on what their dispute and recourse process is.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so if you're doing a purchase, so through Zelle, that's really gonna be your bank on who they recover. If you're doing a purchase, things like I think PayPal has a pretty good dispute process where you can be like, after the fact, be like, hey, this was actually a scam, and they will recover it. But again, it's very much dependent upon the bank and the service. So
Thank
yeah, it's
you.
good
That's
to know.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because when you brought it up, I thought, oh, is that something new? Because whenever I Zelle, because we do a lot, we have a couple businesses, And when I have a new person, what I do when I'm selling stuff, I always do $1 to test.
Yep.
Then I always tell them, hey, I'm doing this, I'm going to have $1, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Because on Zelle, it tells me all the time. Whatever the verbiage, I've ignored it by now, but it says like,
Yeah.
with him, like, oh, be careful because if you send this out, you're not getting your money back.
Yeah, it's very dependent upon the banking on the back end, because Zelle really is just a money transfer system. So yeah, it really just depends. But that's a good point. Process of maybe if you're trying to send some money to your grandkids and they're like, oh, just use my phone number and Zelle it to me, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna give you $1, $5. We're gonna test it. Make sure it's you first, and then I'll send you the big amount.
Yeah.
And that's a really good practice, and that'll protect everyone from having something, because even if you accidentally type in the wrong phone number and then you just accidentally send it, depending on your bank, if you've sent it, it's gone. So that's a great practice.
Well, and Chase is really good. I mean, because I had what I thought was Verizon sending me bills, and I was paying them, and they were able to reimburse my funds. You know,
That's great.
And,
Yeah, that's what I said. They alert. Chase alerts you, and then
Yeah.
and they the Chase they right on it.
Yeah.
Cause I just transfer a trip that I'm going to. I transfer like $1,000, and they text me and says, I see that you transferring money over, and they wanted me to verify it, and I verify it, and then boom, because they would not verify for a whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about what your bank is doing and what processes.
But let me tell you about Huntington Bank.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote, like he said, they took the check, because I'm a part of the organization. They took our check, changed the amount on the check from the mailbox.
Wow.
Took us almost a month. We had to close that account. Then we had to reopen it.
Yeah.
It took a month for
And
them
that's a pain
to.
in the butt, right there.
That was the one that he was talking about, that they went into the mailbox.
Yeah.
And I was on that account.
Yeah.
It took a month for Huntington Bank to fix it.
Yeah. So.
And they knew that it was from the
Well,
mailbox.
and I will say, like, I'm sorry if I'm derailing you.
You're okay.
But, I was really very sensitive to scams at that point after the Verizon thing. And so I realized that every time I give a check to somebody, I'm giving them my checking number and my routing number and my signature
And address.
and address. And I'm like, that's a lot of information that I'm giving on a check to somebody that, is a stranger, basically. And so, so checks have kind of freaked me out. And I thought they were the end all be all of safety, but if they can alter a check, or if they can take your check and just have all that. I can't believe they have our routing information on check. But,
Make a law and change it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not encrypted, it's right there,
Well, and if you want something that is encrypted, using things like Zelle, using things like a tap to pay on your phone, things like that, those are going to be encrypted. But again, you need to know what you're doing with things, regardless of where you're at and how the scammer is trying to get you. Scammers run on you assuming what they're presenting to you is correct. So don't assume those things. If you have questions, go ask your bank. If you have questions about what happens in the chance of fraud, like what recourses do we have, go and ask your bank what recourses they have. And if you're not happy with them, then look at other places, because every bank does it a little differently. Every bank has slightly different safeguards, but it's always best that you are informed and you know what's going on.
Can I say one more thing? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
We started this because we have a couple of businesses, especially like renters, and so we got a post office box for that, so that they're not whatever. But then I started, so we started putting the post office box for our addresses instead of our home address. like for junk mails that you sign up for, or banks, or whatever. And I hate having to pay that, but whatever. I mean, for the peace of mind, for like $150 a year, you know.
Right, it's locked and it's in a building, yeah. Right, that's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Last piece is, this is kind of what a lot of digital banking will look like on your cell phone. So you'll have that sign-in page, the initial dashboard of your information. If you were to click on things like checking, you can go on and see what all of your purchases are, and then you can see detailed information on those purchases. And again, if you don't know what a purchase is, go and ask someone. That is what our banks are there for. Any questions on banking before we move to safety? We will touch on some of these topics. We're going to touch on a lot of the scam topics again, so we'll keep going. All right, so general safety tips. We're going to start with password management, public Wi-Fi networks, and social media. So starting with password management. Everyone knows we have a million passwords and we need a password for everything.
And they all different.
Yes. One thing to keep in mind is risk management. When you are creating passwords, you want to think about how much risk is associated if someone cracks this password. So for example, your bank account, if someone cracks that password, they could wipe me out. That is a high risk. I don't want them having that access. But maybe I play some games on my phone and, you know, I don't have any personal information on there. I don't really mind if someone cracks into that one. You know, there is the reality of that risk management. While our gold standard is always going to be 16 characters long, there are going to be some situations where that maybe is not necessary. So keep that in mind and be very aware of what would happen if someone got into this. Would they get my personal information? Would they have access to my resources? Those are the ones that you need to make sure are the most secure. And again, 16 characters long and different from other platforms. So 16 characters, that seems really, really long. But the recommendation is that you make it a phrase, use a song lyric. We are in Barberton, you could use a song lyric like, do you believe in magic? That's a sentence. I have capitalization, I have punctuation at the end, I have spaces, and then I could even go in and replace the E in believe with a 3. And that adds an additional layer of protection. So doing things like that. One thing is, don't ever use your personal information in your password. So don't use something like, I was born in 1997, exclamation point. That would not be great. Yes, it has all the things we want in there, but anyone who goes on Facebook could find the year I was born. That type of personal information is very easy to find. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, to make it easier to manage all of these different passwords, use a password manager. So there are going to be digital password managers. A lot of our phones, Android and Apple, will already have those built in. Google already has one. There's tons of them. If you're using a digital password manager, make sure that the password you have on that password manager is very secure. You know, that would be your breaking point there. The other thing is, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen these, there are password books. And so these are little booklets that you can write in your passwords in. I won't lie, my parents both have one. They are not necessarily the most secure. It depends on where you store them. So if you store them someplace very secure, then they're as secure as that location is. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use them ever. If that is truly what you are comfortable with, using a password booklet, that's okay. You can use it, but be careful of where you store it and make sure it's not someplace that everyone knows about so any random person can pick it up. Okay?
If I store my passwords like in a place in my phone, is that a really bad idea?
Is it like Notes app? No, that's easy to get into, because then all I have to do is pick up your phone and go look in your Notes app and I can find it.
But I do have like a password to get into my phone, so.
Yeah,
But
but
if somebody hack into my
if,
notes.
yeah, that, anyone got into, depends on your notes. So if your notes are stored through a digital system, yes, that hack could happen.
Okay,
So like if they're Google Notes, yes, that could happen.
okay,
But then on top of that, getting into your phone isn't necessarily as hard as we like to think it is, particularly if you have things like fingerprint or face ID on your phone. Then I just need to flash it at you and then boom, I'm in. Yeah, so some of those things are, we like to think they're really secure, and if you wanted to add additional security, you could look and see if your Notes app provides additional passcodes. Sometimes they do that.
okay.
But
Then where would I put that password? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
yeah, that would be one you would have to remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not considered a best practice. I'll put it that way.
Okay, I was just curious if that's a
Yeah.
bad idea.
I know a lot of people do
I
that.
may or may not have done that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I know a lot of people do it. It's considered not a best practice just because there is a lot of ways to get into your phones, and
Yeah.
we like to think that phones are very, very secure. But particularly if you have biometrics on there, it's not as secure as we think they are.
Wow.
And then, as you know, also I think a bad practice is if you have like a laptop or whatever,
Mhm.
you know, taping your password on the laptop.
Yes, do
'Cause
not
if anybody
tape-
gets your laptop, the
Oh.
password's right there.
Yes, do not
You know?
tape your password like underneath your
bottom,
laptop, underneath your keyboard, underneath your mouse. Those are gonna be the first place people look for them. I know my father has his password underneath his keyboard. I've looked for it before and have used it to
Yeah.
get into his things
Right.
before. So yes, that is not a
It's like
best
putting your
practice.
key under the rock by your front door. you know,
Very,
like that.
very similar. Yeah, it's one of those, everyone looks for it in that location. So if you're having like a password booklet, put that password booklet someplace else that's not associated with these digital devices, where it's kind of, it blends in with other things. And so like if you have a bookshelf where maybe you have some journals, you could put it on there. If you have a safe or something like that that you keep, you could keep it in there. But again, your password booklet is only protected as its location. All right, public Wi-Fi. So public Wi-Fi is those open Wi-Fi networks that you see when you're going into like maybe a restaurant or a store. It's very important that you recognize if you can access that system, someone on that system could potentially access your information. So you only want to be using these for non-personal information. So maybe you want to go and like do a quick Google search. You should be okay to do that on a public Wi-Fi. Don't access things like your Facebook, because if you're using your password to get into your Facebook and someone is watching you while you're doing that, they could catch that information. So keep in mind, you also want to be making sure you're on the most secure websites. So on your URLs, every URL is going to start with HTTP. The secure ones are going to start with HTTPS. Many of us have gotten that kind of, oh, you're going into danger, do you really want to go to that website? That often means that the website is an HTTP. It is not an HTTPS. And the S does stand for security. I don't know what the rest of it stands for, but the S stands for security. So you want to be aware of what types of websites you're accessing. You want to make sure you're logging out of things. If you have a VPN, use that. If you have anti-malware, anti-virus, use that. But just be thoughtful. Keep in mind that if you have access to something, someone else on that network can have access to your stuff.
If you're like on mobile data, is
Mhm. That is not a public Wi-Fi. That is a connection through your cell service.
Okay.
So that's considered a private connection.
But if my phone has a setting that will automatically connect me to Wi-Fi
Mhm.
in a location that maybe doesn't have a lock on their Wi-Fi.
That
you
is
know
a
what I mean?
public
I might
Wi-Fi
be
network.
on public Wi-Fi, and
Yep.
in that case, would it be a bad idea to use my credit card?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be a bad idea
To
to
pay
use your
for
credit card.
something, which is.
Yeah, because
okay.
the other thing to keep in mind when your phone is automatically connecting, you are not personally verifying what those networks are.
Mhm.
And so those networks can sometimes be spoofed. They call them rogue hotspots up here. So we're in Barberton. They have a Wi-Fi network here. It's like Barberton City Schools network. Someone might go and create Barberton City Schools 2 network. Are you gonna pay that much attention to it? Is your phone gonna pay that much attention to it? If the Barberton City Schools network goes down, maybe your phone will automatically take you to 2.
Huh.
And so that rogue network can then be using kind of a malware to kind of see what you're doing.
Yeah, I can see it be like somebody in a mall or a public
Mhm.
space.
Yep.
Sitting there, and that's what they're doing. They're
Yep.
just have this network and waiting for somebody to.
To hop on so that way they can see.
Yeah, and
Yep.
then they can see all your stuff, but,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
is there a setting on my phone where I should not then, have it automatically connect to Wi-Fi when it's capable? And maybe it's a good idea
So-
to not have that. Or
I would
maybe-
I would probably say not to have that on.
So there
and
may be,
then-
there is probably a setting, right? It's
There's
saying
probably a
no.
setting on your
Okay.
phone where you can turn that
Okay.
off.
Okay,
And then what you would need to do is when you need Wi-Fi, you go on and personally verify which accounts are
Yeah, that makes
available
sense. Okay.
and go through that.
okay.
Again, it's that adding that layer of us being part of the security for our information and our devices. Our devices can only do so much. We have to be part of the security force as well.
That's a
Right.
good point.
Last bit we're going to talk about on this section is digital footprint. So anything you put on social media, Facebook,
Mhm.
Instagram, you always want to assume that it is accessible to the public. Just because you have your Facebook on private, if one of your friends has access to that, all of their friends could potentially have access to that. It's one of those things that we like to think that if I put all of my privacy settings on, no one can ever get in. But people are very good at spoofing other people. And so maybe you have a friend request and maybe that person ends up being kind of a fake person or an imposter. Then that person has access to all of the information you're posting on Facebook. So when you're thinking through that, you want to think through being mindful of what you're sharing on social media, particularly when it comes to children. We do know that bad actors have used information posted about children to like kidnapped kids. So don't post your grandbabies or your babies' nicknames, the names of their favorite teacher, the names of their stuffed animals, their favorite color. That type of personal information could be used by a bad actor to gain trust with a child who doesn't know better necessarily. So particularly when you're dealing with posting things about children, best practice, don't share any information about those child's interests. And if you can, don't share, a lot of people don't share children's faces until they're old enough to recognize stranger danger. So below whatever that age may be, I'm very bad with the children's ages, so I don't know, and it probably depends on the child. But if you trust your child to be able to recognize that stranger danger and recognize, hey, this person says they know me, but like I've never met them, I probably shouldn't go with them, then it is up to you kind of on your best judgment. But before that age, do not post their faces, do not post information about them. Again, you're handing that information over to bad actors potentially. Another thing to keep in mind is employers and colleagues can look at anything you post. So we have seen it many a times. People have gotten fired for posting things that are rather stupid online. So don't do that. And remember, yeah, don't do that. But a good practice is treat everyone the way you would treat them in person. So if you're not gonna go up to someone and call them dumb to their face, don't call them that on Facebook. It doesn't matter if you know them as a real person or if you're just arguing with them in maybe a comment section. If you wouldn't act that way in person, don't act that way online. That is kind of a best practice. And then when maybe a potential employer is looking at your things, maybe a friend is looking at your stuff, they're gonna see the you that they see in person reflected on there. We like to think that our digital footprint is anonymous, but it's often not. And we're seeing more and more that people are figuring out, even when you try and make it anonymous, who you really are. So represent yourself for who you really are, no matter where you are.
To go back to the Facebook thing, when my daughter, until she was 18, I would never say her name online. I would say kiddo, my kiddo this. You don't know if it's a she or he, you know, I just say.
Yeah, that's a great practice. That is, again, it's making sure, like, because if you put your kid's name online, someone can go up to your kid and be like, hey, I'm a friend of your mom, this person, I know your name, she asked me to pick you up. You know, those types of things do happen and have happened. Particularly when it's kids, don't post personal information. Yeah, kiddo's a great example, grandbaby, whatever you're comfortable with, but as little information as is possible is always best. All right, so social media safety. The other side of social media, we talked about a little bit, is it's really common for people to get hacked. My parents have both been hacked, and you know, then I get the email saying, hey, click on this link. That's bizarre. My parents have literally never sent me a link to click on.
Yeah.
You know? Or, hey, I just found this great deal. You should go and check it out. That's interesting. This person that I knew in college, who I haven't talked to and haven't messaged since college, just sent me a really good deal to click on. You know, these are indications of a potential hack, and then the bad actor going in and blasting messages out to everyone just to see who will click on that link. Who can we get to go to that next step? So if someone sends you something that's out of the ordinary, and you don't recognize it, you think it's a little strange, pick up the phone and call them. If it's someone who you wouldn't necessarily normally call, question why are they sending you something at all, you know? If someone sends you something and you're like, this is a little strange, call them, check in. You know, you can use it as a great excuse to connect, but also then you're making sure that you are being safe with your information. One that I have seen a lot in my personal life is, hey, look at all of these pictures in this album, and then there's just a little URL for the album. And that one, you know, my mom does send me pictures all the time. And so I had to think about it. I was like, has my mom ever sent me a link to look at pictures before?
Yeah.
Well, no, she always attaches the pictures to the emails that she sends me. So, you know, recognizing the difference in behavior of the people that you interact with, recognizing if this is just someone who would never send you something like this at all. And then if you're questioning it, even if you're like, oh, like this is probably them, just call them. Or text them, you know, just reach out and be like, hey, is this really you? Don't reach out to them through that Facebook message where they just reached out to you, because that could still be the bad actor using it.
Yes, of course it's me.
Yes, of course. But pick up the phone, give them a call, and check in and be like, is this really what you're trying to do? Because they might not know they just got hacked. And oftentimes you'll see, maybe your friends will post this, hey, my Facebook just got hacked, please ignore all messages that came from me on this date. I've seen that one go out, and so you might be alerting them that, hey, something's going on as well. Never send any personal or financial information over social media, regardless of who you think it is. If someone needs financial information from you and it's someone you trust, pick up the phone and call them and give them that financial information. Things like your credit card numbers, you never want to type those down unless they're into actual credit card sections. You don't want to like just put your credit card information in a text box, because anyone who can find access to that can now get that information and use it. So also, if you need to give your family credit card information, call them and give them that information. Don't send it in a text, don't write it down. Not all of our texts are encrypted, and so then someone can just kind of pick it up.
I did have to do that with my husband one time, but what we did, because we couldn't talk, so I said, okay, I told him on the phone real quick, I'm gonna give you these sets on text, these sets on Facebook, I
split it up into different locations. That is a really good workaround if you have to do it, is split the information into different locations. So then if someone wanted to use your information to make purchases, they'd have to be able to gain access to all of those locations. So yeah, that's a great practice in those have to happen situations. Yeah, never open a link posted on social media. We talked about this. Hyperlinks are often masked. Another thing you might see are kind of these gossipy headlines, these eye-catching things where you're like, oh, I really want information about that. There's no way, let me go see that. You always want to hit pause, because look at our location, stevejobslives.net. Well, that doesn't really tell me anything. So if this was maybe CNN, maybe I'll go and click on that, because CNN I know. But at the same time, they're asking me to enter a phone number. Well, CNN's never asked me to enter a phone number to get into information, so I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I will go and Google search for that information and then follow that.
And make sure that website is legitimate.
Yeah, when you're doing your Google search, read the URL, because oftentimes, or all of your searches will tell you what that URL is actually leading to. So you wanna make sure you're going to the actual site you think you're going to. Look for things like misspellings. Oh, sorry, there's different sections. So if you do get some kind of random stuff and you're like, this seems real scammy, you can always report a page. So go on to their page, click on the ellipses or a gear, but typically it's an ellipses nowadays, and you should be able to find it and report the person's information. Yeah,
ellipses, the 3 dots?
Yes, sorry, the ellipses is the 3 dots.
Okay.
And most sites nowadays will have the 3 dots, and then you go on and you report their information. There are ways that you can report without an account. You can fill out a contact form to report a impersonating page or account. That's going through like Facebook themselves. So if you do ever have needs of that, you can go on and find ways to do that. Scam safety, and we are already over time. So are you guys okay with continuing going through this? I'll speed run it. Okay. Email scams, we kind of covered these, but again, this email looks legit. This information looks pretty good, but then I go up here and I see that this email is coming. It says Chase Fraud Alert, but then I look at the actual email and that's not Chase Fraud at all. And I've seen my parents' emails accounts, they've had people's names that they know, but then I go and look at the email account and it is very random and not at all a real person. And so then I'm like, we're like, okay, that's not that real person. So always read who the actual email address is. That'll really give you an indication.
And then it's actually a fraud alert is so.
Yeah, so what they're gonna do, because scammers are smart, unfortunately. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna put you in a scenario that is high stress, because then you're less likely to think through it. So they're gonna give you a limited time to act on it. They're going to make it something that you're going to be very worried about. And so those types of things, they're applying the stress to you in hopes that you don't take the time to look at it. So always in those situations where you're like, oh no, something's gone wrong, take a deep breath, double check everything, verify the information, and then go to the location not through this link. Go to Chase itself, go to your Chase Bank app, go to the phone number for Chase, Google search its phone number for Chase and call them and talk to them about this information instead of clicking on the links through here. And you can just always use that as a practice. And even if you don't catch hey, that's off, or there's some weird grammar in here. Even if you don't catch that, then you know, okay, I'm going through a safe portal to get to this information. And if this is real, it will show up on your safe portals. If it's not real, it may not show up on your safe portals, and that will cause confusion, which also scammers like, because then you're really not thinking through it. If you have that confusion, pick up the phone and call the number that you find online. Don't call through these numbers, call through the phone numbers that you know are real, and go and talk with them, and then they can very much verify whether or not there's an issue. Yeah, so asking to click on a link, calling a number, entering personal information such as passwords. There will sometimes be things like, hey, you need to reset your password. Don't click on the button to reset your password through here. Go to the website itself and reset your password through there if necessary. Things to look like, again, look for it. The domains, incorrect grammar, spelling and punctuation oftentimes, and also if it is something that is putting pressure on you, whether it be through time, whether it be through the scenario, always take a step back and always make sure you're going through trusted pathways. Online shopping scams. If the price is too good to be true, it is. It will not be what you expect it to be. You want to check, are there good Google business reviews? And then also, is this brand can you only find this brand on social media? They don't have a website, they don't have any reviews. They're probably a ghost, they're probably a scam. So make sure you're buying things that are real and not putting your information into sites that maybe are bad actors. Romance scams, this is one that has changed a little bit. Sometimes it looks like catfishing. Sometimes you're really talking to a person and their end goal is to get you to give them money or to get you to give them personal information. This information could include things like your mother's maiden name, the first street you grew up on, the name of your first pet. This information is all used on questions to break your password. So when you forget a password, some sites will have questions that are backup questions that you answer to verify that it's you. Those questions commonly are things like the first street you grew up on, your mother's maiden name, your first pet, your first hobby,
What hospital were you born in?
What hospital you're born in, what city you're born in, all of those types of things. If someone is repeatedly asking you these types of questions, maybe figure out, or maybe just dodge the questions. Don't answer those questions. Also, one scam that's related to this that you'll see online a lot is things like your princess name, your street name, your whatever scenario they can come up with. This is something that a lot of the younger people will see, and it's like, oh, it's really cool and funny, but it'll be things like your princess name is the count of the first street you grew up on and your mother's maiden name. And they're fun, they're viral, they go across. But what they're really doing is fishing for that information that they can use to get into your accounts. But so romance scams.
There's one on Facebook where they like have all those things.
Yep.
And they'll share it and say copy and paste it and add your information.
Yes.
And I'm
that's
just like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
I don't need people to know my favorite color and my first pet's name and all this stuff.
Yes. And what they do is they thrive on that. Share
and
it's
do
fun.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, all my friends are doing it.
Yep.
It's like, what? This is not good. This is a scam. This is great stuff for scammers to have.
Yes, and that's the entire point of those is they realize if we gather that information, I can use that to get into your systems. So keep an eye out for those types of questions. And again, in romance scams, that'll happen a lot. One of the other things we see in romance scams are things like, send me this much money and I'll come to visit you. They'll take the money, but they probably won't visit you. Those types of things do really happen, and we're probably going to see a rise on those with things like AI being used to prompt those conversations. So just be aware of people being sketchy. They're probably sketchy. Imposter scams, we talked about this a little bit again earlier, but similar to catfishing, but oftentimes with organizations where they're pretending to be an organization and asking for your personal information or your money. And so, again, go through the trusted channels, don't go through whatever sources they give you. And that is everything.
Do you
Yes.
do you find different generations have different types of scams?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see that. So, you know, a lot of those like fake names will be in younger generations where, and it'll be things like, what's your street name, or what's your princess name, or things like that, where it's like funny and silly, and it'll be like your first pet's name plus that, and you'll fall for that when you're younger because it's fun, my friends are all doing it. A lot of the scams that are not maybe for older generations are kind of the shopping scams, and it really depends. The one thing to know is scammers are really smart. Like, this is their job, this is what they do. And so they spend a lot of time thinking through how people act and trying to prompt people to act that way, and to trying to mimic what's real in these pathways. And so it'll be dependent on the age range. Yeah, they will try and scam you in different ways. So, I mean, we saw things like the Nigerian prince scams back in the day. Those were often preying on older people who were lonely. That is still very much a real thing. So scams, they target everyone, but they're gonna target you based off of what they think you'll fall for. So yeah, it's, if something feels too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah.
I think the hardest thing is like for people like the older generation that's not really so tech, and they're not getting the word of scams and stuff.
Well, and oftentimes people will kind of, it'll be an all or nothing, where once you learn about scams, you're like so frozen, you're like, I can't do anything. And well, where really it needs to be, you're taking the steps to protect yourself and be part of the security system for your information. Because even in business hacking, the most common thing for business hacking is not like hard hacking through your system. It is emails that go to people that look real at businesses, and then asking you to click on a link. And when you click on that link, it puts in a virus on your computer.
And sometimes the whole system.
And sometimes the whole system.
That,
Yeah. And people are always going to be the easiest thing to get through and the easiest piece to hack. They call it, oh goodness, what's it called? Social hacking? I believe it's called social hacking, where their entire purpose is getting individuals to click on links or to download items, or if you ever pick up a random USB or thumb drive, don't ever plug that into your computer. Just throw it away. That is one thing. Like,
they'll leave them in public spaces. These just little, just flash drives.
Yeah, and you'll be
and
like,
think, oh, I need a flash drive, and it has a virus on it.
Yep.
It's so insidious.
Yep. And oftentimes they're very good at shadowing them, so you don't know that you've downloaded that until it's too late. So if you're picking up a flash drive, don't put it in your stuff, just throw it away. Just throw it away. Honestly, that's the best bet. There's no real safe way to see what's on a flash drive. So, you know, items that you don't anticipate, don't interact with them. People who are acting in strange ways that maybe you wouldn't interact with in a person-to-person way, don't interact with them. You know, that's always the easiest way for hackers to get through, is to get through you personally. But that's also where we can be the strongest, and the linchpin in our security for all of our tech is by taking the steps, taking a step back, never being in too much of a rush, never being able or taking that panic on, and always going through the trusted pathways that we know and kind of taking that breather. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry we went a little bit over, so
Oh.
they should be starting the Q&A if you would like to attend that. But again, I appreciate all of your guys' time.
Okay.
Get our own Q&A.
Yeah, I think we kind of just. Oh,
Here's your pen back.
well, thank you. Oh, I'll deal with that. Can you get through? Oh, I'll move.
No, I just realized
Yeah, I started this. Can I give it to you after?
Yeah, I think they.
Am I supposed to keep this?
Yeah, I can, certainly can.
Here I come.
That's right. You're good.
Gotta come back to this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Come on, there we go.
It fits a very specific.
Yeah, the tennis balls make it more challenging.
But that's great. I love how they do that now.
Yeah, it's a lot quieter than.
Yeah. Okay, and then this way.
We knew you'd be back for your stuff, so.
So much anymore, you know. Gosh.
I know. I think
Learned a
it's
lot.
just good to keep refreshing ourselves on it though.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you just get, just when you think it's safe to go back in the water, you start to fall for something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
just when you get this level of comfort, you're like, oh, I should not have clicked on that, you know?
Yeah. And it's good that people are talking about it, don't even like Dr. Phil talks about it. I mean, it's just really good that a lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah. I want to make sure I introduce Jeff to Holly because she'll be able to tell
Oh,
him
yeah.
like when the next one is, which would be relevant, I think, if anybody wants to
Okay.
come to the next. Oh, looks like.
And you know, I missed it. You guys took that staff picture, and I was looking. Oh darn it! I'm like, we should have taken that picture.
Oh, that's okay. I don't know if we got a good picture of everybody or not.
Yeah, we were. I feel like Jeff looked over one.
And that was just a couple, that really wasn't,
Oh.
that was just a couple people from the school board and
Well,
whatever.
I did take the picture of you guys all
Okay.
up there talking.
Good, okay.
But I don't know. It
Yeah.
was too late when I saw that. But we're gonna talk to you a couple of times, aren't we? We will, promise. We need content, so for sure we will. And those are some good ones. Yes, same here. Are we coming in here?
I don't know.
Is this something about Q&A? So I think I can stop.